We're going to start our talk today, speaking of provinces in the country, with the idea that some provinces may be ready to reopen before others are. So, for instance, Atlantic Canada, the eastern provinces or western provinces might be ready to reopen while others are not. So, should there be a national reopening, or should we have a situation where provinces reopen as they feel they are ready to? What do you think?
I I don't know that there is like one mathematical correct answer to this. I don't know myself. Like if I was asked to decide, I don't know that I could. But I do think that there are some concerns in terms of whether or not, let's say, if the Western provinces were ready to reopen, that they're able to flatten the curve quicker than the Eastern provinces. And if there's objection to that, I have a bit of a concern because, as we saw from our last election, there was some disconnect between the Western provinces and the Eastern provinces. And I worry that if there is an objection to Western provinces, should they be ready, that perhaps some of those differences will be further pronounced.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, Lainey, but the thing where my brain goes is that we kind of also have to be unified in at least what scientific experts are saying. And so by that token, I feel like it seems to be, by all indications, better if we all, in fact, the entire world stays locked down for the moment. Evidence shows that we'll get through it faster and with less deaths. And yet I understand why certain places like Prince Edward Island, for example, is in a vastly different situation than, let's say, Ontario or Quebec at the moment. But let's just say hypothetically that these less dense provinces started to slowly open up. I just worry that, what happens if people start going and visiting there, let's say from other provinces, or feeling like things are a bit easier, there's a little bit more motion, and then the virus, there starts to be another surge. And then you're kind of starting from square one again, and it can reset us backwards in time. That's my biggest concern. I think the best advice seems to be to stay the course.
Stay the course and also follow the data. I think that the one thing we are all collectively hearing from coast to coast to coast to province to territory is testing. There isn't enough of it being done, which means you're not able to track it. If you can't track and measure it, you can't get a real handle on what the real situation is like. And sadly, because there aren't enough tests to go around, every province is in a different situation, testing some people over others. For example, when this started, everybody knew, oh boy, if you've been traveling, you're at really high risk. We're testing all these travelers. That's really shifted over the several weeks to now focusing on, for example, people in long-term care facilities, whether it's the residents and or the workers or their families. So things have changed, and that's changed province to province. But unless you can test it, you don't even know what you're dealing with. So even though I do believe that some provinces are in a different situation because that's what the numbers show because of population differences, et cetera. I think if anybody has a plan to the feds and says, we want to reopen, you've got to prove with numbers and testing that you've got a high percentage of your population tested and that you're very well equipped if you are to open a few services or businesses to be able to effectively track the numbers. So in the event, which is the worst case scenario, that another surge or swell happens, you can identify it quickly and shut it down. We all want to get back to work. We all want to get back to business. What I don't want is to get sick or people around me to get sick, or even worse, die. So show me the numbers. Show me the numbers.
Yeah, it's a great point, Mel. And here's the situation. I mean, it is the job of municipal, provincial, and federal governments to look ahead and prepare things for, the time when things get better and it's time to reopen. But Teresa Tam, Dr. Tam, said it best when she said, and to your point, Mel, new incidences, new outbreaks can be sparked at any time, anywhere. So I think really it's time for an abundance of caution. Better safe than sorry. So even if some provinces feel they're ready, I would say, step back just a little bit because you got to be ready, because we don't want new outbreaks.
It's hard not to think about this story also and look to what is happening in the U.S. right now, where you've got a lot of people on different sides of the fence, and a president who is suggesting that governors can kind of make the decision in certain instances on their own. And we saw that footage this weekend of one of the beaches in Florida, I believe it was in Jacksonville, where they opened up the beaches again. And I just couldn't help but think of that scene in Jaws where the mayor was like, he knew there was a big shark in the water somewhere and that it was dangerous, and yet he was just like, we're opening up the beach. And I mean, I just sort of sat there in horror because we know probably what the end result of that situation is going to be. You know, I hate to make light of it, but you know, just wait and see.
It's wait and see, but it's where there is a politicization of a pandemic. There are a lot of people in the States, pundits, saying, isn't it interesting which states Trump is saying, yeah, governors can do what they want, and what states on Twitter he is effectively goading to, quote, liberate themselves from their oppressive governors. And it is very clearly four, in particular, Democratic states that he is looking to an election towards to win. And that is a recipe for disaster, taking politics and layering it on top of people's health and well-being and, in fact, life. And I know we're not perfect up here, but the moment that politics enters a pandemic, people's lives are on the line.
I think due to our proximity to the United States, there are probably a lot of people in Canada looking to that example and maybe wondering when is it time, and maybe wondering if we can accelerate it. That said, I don't think that our leadership is as shambolic here as it has been in America. I do believe in our leaders here in Canada. I do believe that they have been responsible, and when they can, have been timely with the information. And I also think that, you know, when we're talking about reopening parts of Canada in a staggered manner, like province by province, within each province, it's also staggered in terms of phases of reopening. So let's say, for example, British Columbia seems to have flattened or is on its way to flattening the curve, perhaps quicker than Ontario. I'm not saying that next week people can go see a movie, but there are small steps where they can engage in to really get back to what is going to be a certain kind of normal. And I wonder what those plans are going to be. So not just staggering by location, but a stagger plan within each location and what those steps are.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and maybe
Lane.
it's going to be something like
here that I've been thinking. Yeah. I was just saying, Lynn, I absolutely agree. But, you know, the thing is, governments have had to respond to people who are stir crazy. I mean, that's what's happening right now. People have been inside their homes for more than a month for the most part, and they want to get out. And so governments are faced with the science, as you say, Mel, and then a populace that's saying, we want to get out of our houses. Like, let us know as soon as we can. And so it's a really hard balance because you want to give people hope, but you also have to have measured reality here. And still, you know, it goes back to better safe than sorry. Everybody's doing a really good job, but we just have to keep going for a little while longer.